In the last 72 hours, Nigeria has been awash with controversy over the attendance at the national prayer breakfast at the United States of America by the wife of the president, Senator Remi Tinubu. People within the ruling party and also support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's second tenure, and also those who were angry that the U.S. government has been distancing itself from the Tinubu government, were very excited when they heard live on TV the President of the United States of America acknowledging the presence of the wife of the president at the annual National Prayer Breakfast meeting. He said, "We are honored to be joined today by the First Lady of Nigeria, who happens to serve as a pastor at the largest church in Nigeria."
But we're honored to be joined today by the First Lady of Nigeria, who also happens to serve as a Christian pastor at the largest church in Nigeria, a very respected woman. First Lady, please, where are you? Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Very respected person, too. Thank you. I'm also working tirelessly to end dangerous conflicts and help move past ancient hatreds. In October,
as you can see, even though the President Donald J. Trump acknowledged the presence of the First Lady, Senator Remi Tinubu, he did not take his eyes away from the issues that stand between Nigeria and the United States. Because of the excitement and controversy over the presence of the First Lady at the meeting, and also because of the fact that many people fanatically happy or fanatically against the president and his wife, many people did not see the major and very important thing that President Donald J. Trump said in that statement. He said that the United States had struck the terrorists in Nigeria and had continued to strike the terrorists in Nigeria. That means that we have had continuous or several other attacks by the government or the military of the United States against terrorists in Nigeria.
No administration in modern history has done more to confront the plight of persecuted Christians around the world than we have. With us, it's a mission. It's actually a mission. On Christmas Day, in close coordination with the government of Nigeria, we worked with them, but they got to get tougher. I ordered powerful airstrikes to decimate the ISIS terrorists who have been slaughtering Christians in that country by the thousands. It's not even believable. We hit them so hard, they still don't know what the hell happened. And we were going to do it on a different day. I said, no, do it on Christmas, so they understand it. Remember, Christmas was, when I ran in 2015, when I announced, I said we're going to bring back Christmas because the word Christmas was almost gone, and we did. People use Christmas anymore. We brought back the word Christmas. They didn't want to use it, and we're using it again. But I specifically told Pete, I said, hit him on Christmas Day. Not earlier and not later, right, Pete? And man, did he hit him. So then we hit him again recently. We hit him again pretty hard.
Well, let's take our minds away from the attacks back to the controversy over the presence of the First Lady at the prayer breakfast meeting. Many people are not happy that the wife of the president, who is a current senator, attended a prayer breakfast meeting that people of faith all over the world do attend. Their anger seems to stem from the fact that the attendance at the meeting was presented in the media and in the social media in Nigeria as a victory for the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the efforts to win the United States. First of all, there are people who believe that Nigeria has not been doing very well and the government has not done much to sort out the security challenges. There are people, especially among the Christians in northern Nigeria, who believe that the presence or more activities by the government of the United States in Nigeria will stem or reduce the continuous attacks that have continued in almost all the states of the Middle Belt, including Plateau, Kaduna, Benue, Niger, Nasarawa, Taraba, and all other areas that are affected, that people have been fleeing. And indeed, as already known, several communities that were cleared by terrorists have not come back. And not quite long ago, when 300 school children were kidnapped from a school in Niger State, the government came out to deny that such a thing happened. But again, the government went back to eat its words when the governor of Niger State started receiving people, these pupils that it said had not been kidnapped. And just about 3 weeks ago, the Kaduna State government also did the same thing. It came out to deny that 3 churches had been attacked and that worshippers in those churches had been kidnapped. Well, not long after, the people and members of the community started bringing out evidence of the attack, and the police headquarters in Abuja came out to admit that indeed some people had been kidnapped. And so people who think that the government is not doing much and that government has been hiding, doing everything possible to reduce the public knowledge of the atrocities happening in rural Nigeria, were not happy when they heard that the First Lady had gone to the United States and had been warmly welcomed by the President of the United States. On the other hand, the people who were not happy with the intervention of the government of the United States seem to be very happy now that the President of the United States has reduced his stance and is warming up to the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But of course, a careful look at the two sides will show clearly that both sides may not be correct and may be just holding on to the sentiments and the device that we have in Nigeria between those who are against the president, between those who are not happy that the President of the United States is talking about Christian genocide in Nigeria, and also the people who think that the United States needs to come in to help not just the Christians, but to help communities that have been dispersed, communities that have almost been emptied in several places. The government of Plateau State says that over 63 communities had been wiped out by these terrorists. In Kaduna State, community leaders insist that up to 163 communities have been wiped out or have been occupied by these terrorists. But what is this breakfast prayer meeting in the United States that the wife of the president attended? For a brief history, the National Prayer Breakfast is traced back to the informal prayer meetings in the United States Congress during the World War II in the early 1940s. These were weekly gatherings of senators and members of the House of Representatives to pray. In 1953, President Dwight Eisenhower accepted an invitation to join members of the Senate and the House for what became known as the first official presidential prayer breakfast. Evangelist Billy Graham played a role in encouraging the attendance of the president at the meeting. In 1970, the name was changed to the National Prayer Breakfast to reflect its broader purpose and participation. And traditionally, the meeting has held annually on the first Thursday in February each year in Washington, D.C. And the breakfast includes a series of meetings, luncheons, and dinners over several days. And this is typically hosted or led by a partisan committee of U.S. Congress. That is to say, the meetings are co-chaired by the nominee from the Republican Party and one from the Democratic Party. Over the years, this meeting has attracted attendees from all over the world, including U.S. political leaders, diplomats, religious leader figures, business leaders, and international guests from over 100 countries. In the one that the wife of President of Nigeria attended, there were about 110 countries that were in attendance, and there were well over 3,000 attendees at the meeting. At one of the prayer meetings that I attended, that was the one that took place in the year that COVID took over the world, President Trump was present. And in attendance were several presidents of other parts of the world. We had the president of Kenya then in attendance. We have some leaders and religious leaders from the Middle East, including Muslims, Buddhists, also in attendance. Over the years, we've had several leaders, not just Christian presidents, attend the National Prayer breakfast meetings. In 2006, we had King Abdullah II of Jordan attend, and he also addressed the meeting. We had President Ricardo Maduro, President of Honduras, also spoke at the meeting in 2005. We have Benazir Bhutto, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, featured in a video interview at a closing dinner in 2008. And we've had His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, who also addressed the meeting in 2015. And we've had the president of Burundi also in attendance. Like I said, we had President Daniel Arap Moi of Kenya. We have the president of Bangladesh, president of Burundi, and then we had the president of El Salvador. Of course, people who attend can say that they had dinner or they had breakfast with any president of the United States who may have been in attendance. But the fact of the matter is that most of the time, different types of meetings, business meetings are held. You had networking programs and so forth. And so they are not personal meetings that people are attending because the United States government wants to warm up to any person or any particular person. And in the case of the First Lady of Nigeria, the senator, of course, she had the right to attend. She was a prominent person, or she may still be a prominent person as a member of the Christian Legislators Forum that also organizes the Nigerian prayer breakfast meeting in which presidents in Nigeria also are in attendance. And of course, several leaders of the National Assembly and members of National Assembly's Legislators Forum have attended this American National Prayer Breakfast meeting. So her attendance at the meeting was not anything unique, but of course, the controversy naturally would have come up because of the 9 million that the government has used in hiring a lobbyist group to lobby for Nigeria. And so people will naturally think that it is because of the diplomatic efforts or the lobbyist group that the government has hired that the First Lady attended. Well, possibly yes, but possibly no, because any member of the National Assembly, any person who has been active in the Christian Legislators Forum will as well have been invited to attend the meeting. Attendance at the meeting should not have received the type of controversy that it has received in Nigeria because it is a regular thing that happens. Several legislators in Nigeria, year in, year out, go for those meetings. But I guess because of the fact that we are sharply divided over the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the prospect that he is contesting the election, that people are divided and think that his wife had gone there to continue some diplomatic work to reduce the anger of the government of the United States at what is happening in Nigeria. But for those who know President Donald J. Trump, you could see that in the same breath that he was acknowledging the presence, with due respect to the Senator Remi Tinubu, he did not shy away from saying that the United States will continue to put pressure on Nigeria and will continue to hit terrorists in Nigeria. And so I think this controversy that we had is a needless controversy because we're in a political season. Everybody will talk about politics. The government has a right to lobby. The people have a right to be angry at government and its actions or inactions. And the President of the United States has a right to continue to do what he thinks is right for him to do. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.